We now have a quorum. So let us begin with, let me get my bearings under me. Let's see what I'm supposed to say. Read the which part? Okay, while we are waiting on Madam Secretary to return to her station, I am going to go ahead and read our board meeting decorum policy because it seems like we need a gentle, loving reminder of how to treat one another in this public space. As a reminder to the public, the following rules of board meeting decorum may be found in Board Policy BCB. It is in the public interest that meetings of the school board or its committees in handling the public's business be conducted in an orderly and dignified manner. To this end, the following rules are established for the conduct of all persons, including school board members and staff members attending a meeting of the board or its committees. No signs, posters, placards, etc. shall be affixed to the walls, doors, etc. of the school board office building or any room therein except by the school board staff in connection with school board business, and then only with permission of the superintendent and or his or her designee. No sign, placard, or poster which is carried by hand shall be permitted in the school board office building or any of its rooms. All persons attending meetings of the school board or of its committees must be recognized by the presiding officer before speaking. In return, the presiding officer and other school board members shall courteously receive the comments made by such persons. Personal attacks. Say that one more time. Personal attacks and references to personal and confidential information of others are not allowed. You can make your point on an issue without attacking a person. If you cannot, perhaps the point you're raising is not as strong as you think it is. Any person who fails or refuses to obey the rulings and directions of the presiding officer or otherwise disrupts the meeting in any manner shall be requested by the presiding officer to leave the meeting room for the remainder of that meeting. If any person refuses to follow the directions of the presiding officer, the presiding officer shall cause such person to be removed from the meeting as authorized by Louisiana Revised Statute 4217. and other applicable laws of the state of Louisiana. And we have Madam Secretary back at her seat. We have a quorum, and we shall move forward with call to order and invocation by school board member Mark Ballou and pledge of allegiance by school board member Evelyn Ware Jackson.
Heavenly Father, we're grateful for the opportunity to come together in service of our community. Please guide our discussions to make them productive. Help us to keep an open mind and consider the needs of others as we make decisions that affect our schools. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge, and I'll ask you to mean it, especially the last verse. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
District 9, President Tapman. District 4, Vice President Collins.
Present.
District 1, Mr. Blue.
Here.
District 2, Mr. Lannis. District 3, Mr. Howard. District 5, Ms. Ware Jackson.
Present.
District 6, Ms. Dyson.
Present.
District 7, Mr. Gode.
Present.
District 8, Ms. Bernard. We have a quorum.
Moving forward with item B1, receiving as information, update from the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Just excited as we could continue this week. As you know, this week is an exciting week in the city with the game that's going to be played between Southern University and LSU. And so we've been participating with many of folks as we in the festivities this week around that. Looking forward to this weekend. We've also been walking through to ensure that kids are able to go ahead and participate more in our after school activities, and also been trying to make things more accessible to parents around improving our transportation efforts and many of those things. We're also excited for upcoming college and career fair that we'll be doing on September 20th for all of our high school seniors. We partnered with Tremaine Sterling and the 2911 Mentoring for a Day that will help our students grow personally and professionally. Parents receive waivers for their children to attend, and we ask that you please have them return to your school this week. We'll have the students, as the parents will have the opportunity to decide on waivers for them to attend. And our goal during that time is that we are be exposing children to talk about college and career choices that they will have, and also be exposed to a lot of college and career programs throughout all the participants that will be there. The second thing we're going to do is also, as many of you know, we've talked a lot about the Kenilworth School that will be coming back to the school in the upcoming time. And one of the things that we wanted to do was that we wanted the community to have a community forum to discuss the future of Kenilworth School. We'll be discussing the focused choice school option that includes innovation and theme-based academic programs. We will be holding a forum on September 22nd from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. for that forum. So we ask for the community to look for more specifics on that. You'll see we'll be putting that out on our social media platforms as well as on our website. And our location will be at the library, which we're very excited that we'll be hosting that forum. Last but not least is we'll be hosting a fall fling recruitment event September 24th from 9 a.m. to noon at Sherwood Middle Academic Magnet School. This is a part of our continued effort through the Human Resource Department to continue recruiting dynamic talent for our district. And we've been working really hard to as you know, trying to recruit and retain more employees in different parts of the organization, not only with our teacher workforce, but also with other positions such as transportation and other areas of need in our school system. As you know, we have 6,000 employees, but we have many opportunities to work with schools. And Madam Vice President, that is my report.
Thank you very much. Now moving forward. Board colleague Jill Dyson. Oh, that was an accident? Okay. Board colleague Evelyn Ware Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Dr. Narcisse, just a couple of things. Wanted you to just speak on the breaks and we've been getting a question whether all of the middle schools do or do not have breaks. I've gotten different answers. When I spoke with you earlier this week, you assured me that you'd spoken with the principals and they all said yes. But there's a conflict in what parents are saying, and I haven't clearly gotten an answer in the email. So I'd like you to address that. And also, around the DUFROC community meeting, they're asking for a community meeting. I know that I just saw an invite for, I think the 21st or something, for a parent meeting here, but what they're really needing is a community meeting where people from the neighborhood can actually come and hear about what's going on with the Montessori, and so that the parents who are experiencing Montessori right now and are feeling like, and have been saying this for a couple of years at least, that we don't have true Montessori there, and we need the growth, especially with the millions that we have invested at Belfair for expansion. So we really need a good foundation in Montessori so that our investment will be well spent. So could you address those two for me, please?
Sure. Thank you so much, Board Member Jackson. I'll just share what myself, me, you, and General Counsel talked about at the meeting. Just for clarity, as we shared with Board Member Jackson in our meeting, in our current schools, elementary schools do what they call recess. And at the middle and high school, it's physical activity is the language that is used. And what we, as Board Member Jackson asked, we try to tell folks we try to be careful about those words being used interchangeably. The middle schools are currently following the law in the sense of the requirement around middle school having physical activity breaks. And General Counsel, would you mind, Mr. Shamlin, sharing with the board what the law says in that space?
Yes, Dr. Narcisse. Board Member Red Jackson, I believe the question had to do with whether, the initial question was whether recess is mandated in
Yeah, or
schools.
not really. No, I didn't ask if it was mandated. We asked why big breaks were eliminated from middle school. That's the
Yeah,
question.
so I can only address the legal question, which was the requirement that K-8 schools have 30 minutes of physical activity daily. That's a requirement in the law, and it's called physical activity. I can't speak to the breaks in schools, and I think Dr. Narcisse and staff can probably speak better to the structure of how breaks are organized in schools, but the law requires that mandated physical activity period daily
Right,
for each
30
school.
minutes a day.
Yes.
K through 8.
Yes, ma'am.
But that wasn't the question. The question was around breaks that had been there previously and not there this year, and the fact that children and adults both need breaks. We can't expect our children to perform well if they're sitting in the classroom all day, no breaks, no brain breaks. You know, they may get physical activity every other day if they're on an A-B schedule, but even with the statute saying 30 minutes per day, how do you do that if you're on an A-B schedule and you're only having physical ed? And physical ed is not real social time. And if we have invested a lot of dollars in social emotional learning, and if children are not allowed to practice, then we're wasting our time and our money, and we're actually hurting children. So this is the issue that we need to have addressed. They had it before, it's been taken away, and it all started this year. And I'm told that in some schools, it was brought back and then it was taken away again. After everybody got excited, yay, you know, we got our breaks back, and then it was taken away. So there are a lot of people who need to know, want to know, and we need to do whatever we can to give children the breaks that they need. So what are we going to do?
So,
about
Board
it?
Member Jackson, I just want to make sure we clarify a little bit, because I think you said that it was given to them and taken away. That's
They had it
we
last
did
year.
not take anything
They
away. What we
didn't.
have done was we reviewed. If we can give you some facts and specifics, Ms. Smith, can you come up just to give the board what the process has been with middle schools?
Good evening, board. We've had a variety of different questions around this question regarding breaks or recess. And a couple of factors that we have to also consider when we're having this conversation is just not the break itself, but also the other contributing factors that are connected to the schedule itself. So the statement that breaks were taken away from students, that is a statement that we would have to investigate more, because it's my understanding that the schedule that we have now has not been altered in most schools in the way that it's being. Recess in middle grades, schools that have grades 6 through 8, was normally facilitated during the lunch break. Now, there may have been some cases where schools had 45-minute lunch breaks, and now all schools are standardized to a 30-minute lunch break. That would be an adjustment, but that was not universally true of all of our middle schools. The other consideration is that instructional minutes, as mandated by the state, are required. So the instructional blocks that we have defined in the schedule had to align with the amount of minutes that are required by the state for instructional time. Also, the consideration is that our middle schools offer high school level courses. So that was another consideration to ensure that we were scheduling our instructional blocks to align with the Cornigan unit requirement that students can meet that requisite to be awarded the Cornigan unit. Now, historically, when we looked at schedules, that requirement was not universally being met by all schools because variations in how schools were scheduling. That's why we went to a more prescribed and standardized scheduling model across all of our secondary schools. But a switch from a release of recess for the middle grades last year, that was not a question or concern. There was no evidence that there was a separate block for students to have recess in their schedules. And the only switch or change that may have applied to some schools was the amount of time that some schools were ascribing to lunch, where it was 45 minutes before and now it's down to 30 minutes. But those are the only modifications that have been applied.
Well, fact of the matter is, there's no break in some schools, and they need it. Whether it's after lunch, I mean, I remember, surely they did it after lunch in many of the schools. It's sort of natural. You go to lunch and then, you take a break. But it's not present in I don't know about all the schools. Now, I've heard that, some say all the schools, all of the middle schools don't have it. I've heard from some, I know that Sherwood doesn't, and a few others. But the question remains, do we see the importance of our kids having a brain break and some social time, especially if we are concentrating so many dollars on social emotional learning? This is a very good thing. However, if our children are not allowed to practice what we're preaching to them, it does them no good. And we're going to see infractions rise. Kids need to move around. Middle school kids need to socialize more. Middle school is a strange time in a child's life, and they need to be able to socialize and learn how to navigate among one another. But besides all that, they simply need a break, and there was a break, and now there's none. And I think it's really important that the district prioritize that. I don't know what is going on with the schedule, if it's mandated that they have these extra minutes that's taken away from that, or what is replacing that time. But I think it's critical that we do whatever we can to bring that back, because we're going to see some really negative effects of that. And I don't have to give you research to tell you that I know I'm right about this. You can ask anybody, ask any parent, and they'll tell you.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to weigh in on uplift the concern for the need for breaks, which was expressed in various emails that led up to this discussion. I know that there are some restraints where you have to balance some legal requirements for instructional minutes. And yes, we are academic institutions, so you have, and I use instructional minutes loosely. So your academic time and legal requirements around that. But I think it's imperative on us here in this room and as a broader society to recognize how inhumane it is to expect students, as well as the teachers who educate them on the front line, to be productive and or even content and happy in their experience when there's no shutdown time. I mean, there are countless examples some countries that we consider to be very productive, first world countries like France and Denmark and China, who not only take 30-minute breaks, but 2 to 3 hour breaks in the middle of the day, shut down the whole entire factory in some cases for nap breaks. And here we are, unfortunately, with this cloud over our head because how perhaps as a society we choose to view the students who attend public school institutions. And so whether it's us as policymakers being vigilant about leveraging our tools, whether state law allows, whether it's parents and educators or the general public petitioning the state decision makers in the legislature or the Bessie board, I think it's something very important that folks need to pay attention to. And whatever wiggle room we have, I hope that we are mindful and take those opportunities to make sure that students and staff have breaks, not just the physical activity, because that's really addressing, and if I recall correctly, the intent behind the law on physical activity was about exercise, not about a mental health break. And so I just wanted to raise that up. Board colleague Godet.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Collins. I just wanted to add a quick point to this. I've heard it said that things were taken away. And since all of this came up, I did some research for the middle schools in my area. And Glasgow Middle has exactly the same schedule this year that they had the year before and the year before and the year before. There is no change in their schedule. So that is not true that it's been taken away at that school. I can't speak for all schools. And also, given the constraints, because one of the issues that I talked about in my email is that every time somebody has a problem, they run to the legislature or something, you get a law passed. And each individual one of these items, it can go from shaking baby to swimming to whatever. Each one of these items taken in isolation looks like a good idea, but they just pile more and more and more requirements on it and reduces our flexibility less and less and less. So I think that's the situation we're in. So right now, as far as I can see from what I understand for the schedule, I'm not opposed to the breaks if that's what we want to do, but that would entail increasing the time of the middle school classes by 30 minutes. And decreasing or pushing back the let out time by 30 minutes, because that's, you can only put 5 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack, and we have the sack full. And so, so if we're really serious about this, we're really talking about extending at least the middle school day by half an hour. And so there's no other time in the schedule from everything that I've seen to that. So, I understand, and also having had plants in China, let me tell you, that is not the commonality of it. We used to, what normally was known was a 996. That meant from 9 in the morning to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. A lot of China operates on that. France is not exactly the epitome of productivity, trust me. So I agree with you that it'd be nice to have some breaks, but we also recognize that we have a lot of high school classes being taught in middle school. And if we're doing that, we got to follow the high school requirements on minutes and everything for Carnegie units. So there's a lot of restraints in here that have been put up by the state and by ourselves, and we're fighting a big learning loss issue right now. So cutting back on instructional time is the last thing I think we want to do. So if we're really serious about this, we need to be serious about increasing the time spent in school, particularly at middle school. So that's what this is going to come down to if we really want to push this. And we're not in a position to increase salaries or do anything like that for teachers. We're already talking about an 8% increase, but that's based upon the base we now have. So increasing time wouldn't come with increased salary, it'd be break time. And so there's a lot of pieces that go into this that we can't just pick on one issue. We have to look at how it impacts the entirety of the thing and how we look at this. So I'm not opposed to looking at it, but recognize that in looking at it, there's a lot of knots in that thing that needs to be untied as we go through this. It's not just as simple as saying, hey, we're going to schedule a half hour, because there's no half hour to schedule. the half hour would have to come by increasing the day by a half hour. So just be careful what we ask for is all I'm trying to say. Thank
So-
you.
So you're saying that there's high school classes?
Well, you could put your name
Get
back in the
back
queue
in
because
queue.
it's board colleague Dyson was next.
Thank you. And I have been watching this situation and closely as well, and have even talked to children who have previously been in our system and what they did. And so I do think that there is that factor of those that are taking those high school classes in the middle school setting because they're advanced. So I know that's one of the factors. But I was going to say, although I agree with my colleague, Mr. Goday, then there's the other solution that we could, and I don't know, it will be disliked by many as well. And that would be not just necessarily is the option to add the minutes to each school day, but there's also the ability to add an additional school day per semester that would help with those minutes. I mean, we have various options. And so when we're doing a calendar, we can consider, what is the best, way to approach this. So we just got to keep our minds open to what are the options. And then, you're not going to please 100% with any of the options, but to see what might fit best for kids. Thank you.
Board colleague Ware Jackson.
Well, if we look at anything on the calendar, we would probably have to wait until next year to make any adjustments on the calendar. I know we have extra days added into vacation times and all, but we mentioned that there are high school courses at the middle school level. That's something new. It can't be, it's not at every school, is it? It's not every student.
No, not every student.
Well, then why would it affect every child's schedule if only some kids are taking advanced courses? That would not cause the whole school schedule to change and not allow breaks for everyone. I'm just looking for answers because people are asking me. I don't know why, if they're not asking anybody else, it's surely coming to me.
Board Member Jackson, I think it's more complex than we're trying to simplify. I think right now what we've tried to do at first is to make sure the schools are following the law, and which they are. When the question was asked originally, first thing we had to do is the team to go out and check what the schedules are. And also we've put in place where we review all of the master schedules with content teams just to make sure that everyone is following at least what the required minutes are. I think some of these other questions around breaks and those things, if the board chooses that that's a place they'd like to go into, there's other factors we'd have to consider. You heard board member Godet talked about extending the day. If that's what the board would like to do, we have to look at that. But every move that we do, is an impact for something else. And so in the schedule, there are just sets of requirements that we try to make sure we can go through, and then we manage accordingly. But I would just say it's not, what we can assure folks as of right now is that currently the schools are following the required schedule that's they should follow legally. And if the board chooses that they want to go into extending day or those are things we can look into. I don't think it's something we'll be able to solve right now tonight at the cow for that. But what I would say is, as of right now, I just want to make sure there's two things that's been very clear. One is we've worked with school leaders ensuring that the required necessary courses that students need, they should have. And the second thing is that all schools are following the guidelines set by the state on the required minutes. And so that we are very clear about. Again, just want to make sure that we are just careful with the word recess and physical activity, because we use those interchangeably and sometimes it means different in different ways. But, you know, we can look at a lot of different things in this space to move that forward.
Dr. Narcisse, the initial question was around just break time, whether we called it recess or the physical activity part came in when we started. Well, Mr. Shamlin looked up the state statute to see whether recess was a mandate from the state. We found that it wasn't. And that's where we found out that the only thing that the state talks about is physical activity, that they need physical activity, 30 minutes a day, whether it's in PE or however you want to do it. But on Wednesday, I asked you specifically, I brought this up in our conversation, and you told me that you had spoken with all of the principals last week and that all of them had breaks. And you asked me to find out specifically which schools we were talking about when I told you that I was having parents talk to me. And now you're saying that that wasn't true? What is it?
Miss Ward,
Which is it?
Board Member Jackson, I want to make sure, because it was myself, you, and Mr. Shamlin in the room.
Right.
When you asked the question, we differentiated for you between the recess and the required law 5 breaks. You inquired a lot about the additional minutes. You've made it clear to us that you believe there should be more minutes added on, and you asked whether it was in the beginning of lunch, end of lunch, and what I assured you was I said we have recess at the elementary level, and to me, in my mind, that's the pre-K 5. And in the middle school level, we follow the guidelines, which is the language we use, Mr. Shamlin, is physical activity. And what I shared with you during that time was when we checked with schools, they are following those rules based on the master schedules that we reviewed here with principals and their teams, that there were no guidelines at fault. What the challenge, at least what we were trying to figure out where the gap was around this notion of recess that seems to be used for the middle schools, but middle schools don't use that language. But I heard you clear that you believe that there should be more minutes for kids to have breaks.
No.
So what I want to make sure, I'm sorry?
No, sir. No, I said they needed a break, not more minutes to the day. The only thing I was asking you about was the break. And you said specifically that you had checked with them and that they all did. And if there was any school, to let you know. So I started inquiring, and that's how I got the information.
So there's a school that, if I hear what you're saying, there's a school that is not following.
That is not having breaks. I didn't ask you about instructional minutes, how many they're supposed to have. The only thing I was inquiring about was the breaks, because that's what that's where it started, was the email from the parent. And so, I'm just trying to get a straight answer.
And we want to make sure we
They don't
give
all have
factual information. I think one of the
Right.
challenges, Ms. Board Member Jackson, just to be transparent on our end here, is we are trying to give you what's actually happening in schools. Every time we hear someone that you share that says something, we just are trying to give facts, and we're also trying to ensure that the law is followed, right? And so, but if we add more minutes to give, we'd have to add more minutes to give breaks. That is the bottom line. If that's something the board would like to choose to go down, we can look into that. But what I want to make sure clear, because in the room was myself, you, and Mr. Shamlin, and Mr. Shamlin here can share, we try to make sure we clarify the law for you, and also try to be clear between the elementary schools do recess and the middle schools or secondary schools refer to as physical activity. That's exactly what we talked about.
Okay, Dr. Narcisse, but I'm just asking on behalf of parents and children about break time. They had it, now they don't. And it's because there's more minutes added to, less minutes added to the schedule. I don't know. And at this point, it's a bit frustrating just trying to get, just trying to find out, what was the big change? Why is it that they no longer have this time? Why don't
There
they
was no
have
change,
brain
Board Member
breaks? And
Jackson.
is there anything?
There was no change. Every time you say there's a change, so I ask, can you give me the specific school that you're hearing this? What we go off is the schedule that we reviewed with school leaders and all of our content leaders to ensure that we know exactly what is in the schedule period by period. The school district did not always have a process for it. And the reason we put that process in place was to ensure that, one, the requirements were followed, the required subject areas were followed, and then to make sure that we were not having any challenges in that area.
Okay. Well, all I'll do is you parents, contact your board members, contact Dr. Narcisse, and you tell him which schools are not allowing brain breaks or any breaks for your children. Okay? Thank you.
Board colleague Gode?
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Just to reiterate again, since we seem to be beating a dead horse, I checked with the middle school in my district. There's been no schedule change over the past several years. And so the schedule they're following today is exactly the schedule they followed before. Secondly, I did some quick math. I'm sorry, I'm an engineer. I have to do that. Half hour a day would equate to about 15 extra days of school. It is not a small matter to come in with that. It's not just, oh, let's take a day or two and we can pick that up. It'd be 15 extra days. And so the way I understand it, if some schools had to change their schedule, it was because they were not meeting the mandated law in the subjects that they had, and some kind of way they were getting away with it because the prior district had not kept track of that in the right way. But again, I'm not opposed to that, but the only way I see out of this is to extend the day for half an hour. And if that's what we want to do, that's something we can start next year. But that is no small item to attack at the middle school level. So I'm willing to attack it if that's what we want. Yeah, it covers all sorts of things. So we can attack that if we'd like. And but we're hemmed in by state law and by BESA requirements as all of these go through. So we really don't have a lot of wiggle room. So as all these parents call in, I'd ask also that you say, which would you prefer, to extend the day a half hour or to extend the school year by 15 days? Because that's the options that we have if we want to add this into the system. There's no free lunch. We got to make a change. If we're going to change that, we got to change something else to make that work. Thank you.
Thank you, board colleague. I just want to mention, and I've had a couple of parents and one educator text me during this time, mention specific schools where this really is an issue. And it's been an issue for a long time. Okay, so I'm not raising up that folks are saying right now in this moment is an issue as if I'm pointing blame. General Counsel Shamlin, what authority I know the board president can establish committees to work on issues. Do the board members, can we vote on that or something like that?
I don't think there's a
do
vote.
that?
Yes, ma'am. That's a good question, Vice President Collins. I don't believe a vote is required. It's in policy that the board president or a member can request that a committee be created to study or look into an
Okay,
consideration.
maybe let's do that because I don't know. It's very hazy and it's been hazy for a long time. Again, I'm not saying this is a Narcisse administration issue in and of itself. My personal belief is that it's been a problem. It's just been a problem. And in my personal opinion, as a society, we read the Bible, if you will, and I'm using this loosely, okay? We read the Bible or whatever religious text, and it said the Lord on day 1 through 6 created all that is on the earth, and then on the 7th day he rested, and then we forget that how significant that is. And so as a culture, we take breaks, lunch, recess, whatever, as something to play with. But I think, my personal opinion, part of the great resignation in the labor market being a reality is because we are not deliberate about, yes, be productive, but you have to take care of yourself. It's counterproductive, especially in an academic setting, to not let your brain rest and have some downtime. So I would like to, and General Counsel give me guidance, establish a committee to review the situation in detail that can offer some guidance or recommended policy to the board on the issue of breaks. And use the term generally, so breaks being non-structured time, which would include recess or what have you, but does not include physical activity, because during PE time, you still receiving instruction, and it's not mental downtime.
Yeah, I would recommend we call the work group. They can
Okay.
study and bring a recommendation back in 30 days to the superintendent and the board.
Okay.
And the board president and the superintendent can decide the makeup, or the board
Okay.
members it could be board members, parents, whatever the.
I would like to put on the record, and whatever the actual technical process needs to be to come up with the committee, but I would like to recommend at least 1 or 2 board members, 2 parents, 2 educators, like frontline educators, like teachers, because they see the direct impact. So 6, at least 6, and then whatever respective district staff person, chief of staff, or whomever.
So Vice President Collins, I can, if the superintendent's okay with it, we can work with you to.
Yeah, I agree with Vice President Collins. We can do that.
Okay, and again, I'm not trying to, I'm not saying this is a current administration problem. It's something that I think we have, as a board, over the years, been in a habit of taking lightly. And we can buckle down and come up with some, and we will still have some restrictions according to instructional minutes, et cetera. But I think if we take a more deliberate look at it, we probably can find some low-hanging fruit to help the situation. Board colleague Ware Jackson.
Yeah, just last but not least, to reiterate what Mr. Gode said, no, Glasgow did not have breaks last year, nor did McKinley Middle, and they said they just got their break back this year at McKinley. But fact of the matter is, they need them. They're asking for them. We need to do something, whatever we can, because we know some of our charter schools are giving kids breaks. You know, and there, I sent you guys a little video that just shows how innovative it is to offer breaks and what kind of benefits these schools are having with their children's academic performance, and just all around good things happening. So I encourage it. I implore of you to do something to help these children and the adults in the classroom who are not getting breaks, because we know full well we couldn't survive it. And, you know, like I told you all in the email, I dare any of you adults to live the life of a student just for 3 days. I don't think you'd make it past the 2nd day.
All right, moving forward. Oh, yes, sir.
We passed board policy we have passed board policy on the number of times people can speak and time limits. And that has not been, so I didn't want to stop the discussion because we were having a very good discussion, but I wanted to remind ourselves that we have that policy. And I would like from this point forward, because I didn't want to stop the discussion, but I'd like from this point forward that we adhere to that policy.
Board colleague, I recognize your pain, and I had also took note, but was reminded that we use specific language per motion. So since we said per motion, that means the time restrictions are on action items. And I mean, non-action items still take time, so perhaps that's something moving forward as we realize we need to tweak the policy, then that's something we could tweak. But thank you for raising that, because I'm sure members of the public was probably thinking the same thing, especially our staff that have to stay here with us. Okay. All right. So moving forward, item C1, professional service contracts. Recommended action, consideration of a request for the approval of professional services contracts between East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and the following. A, Let's Serve LLC in the amount of $95,000 to provide an online platform for community service. Funding source ESSA 3. B, Empower Schools in the amount of $75,000 to provide support and resources for innovative plans. This one to Baton Rouge Center for Visual and Performing Arts. C, Empower Schools in the amount of $75,000 to provide support and resources for innovative plans. This one to Baton Rouge Foreign Language Academic Immersion Magnet. Excuse me. D, Empower Schools in the amount of $75,000 to provide support and resources for innovative plans. This one to Helix Charter. E, Empower Schools in the amount of $75,000 to provide support and resources for innovative plans, strategic alignment. This one to Capitol High. F, all here in the amount of $99,268.78 to provide a family support platform. G, American Reading Company in the amount of $56,000 to provide guidebooks, professional development. H, Nova's Insight in the amount of $25,175 to provide centralized on-demand application management. Funding source MSAP grant and Magnet. And the previous funding sources, I apologize, were A, ESSA 3, B, ESSA 3, C, D, E were ESSA 3, F, ESSA 3 Action 2, G, Redesign, and then J, Arbinger Institute in the amount of $452,366 to facilitate workshops for progress, monitoring of strategic plan, and professional development for school leaders. And funding source ESSER 2, Action 2, and ESSER 3, Action 2. Can I get a motion? Board Member Gode and Board Member Ballou. Seeing no comment from the board. Public comment from Kathy Carmichael.
Good evening. Kathy Carmichael, District 7. I just wanted to bring up a couple of things about item J, which is specifically in amounts of near $500,000 that would be paid to the Arbinger Institute. In February of 2021, this institution provided services to East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. However, the funds were paid entirely from private donations through the foundation. And under the narrative of services for this contract that's listed on the board docs, it talks about instituting services for the East Baton Rouge Parish Board, the cabinet, and other district leaders. So this is an election year, so offering these services to board members who are leaving might not be the best use of funds. And just for the general public who hasn't read about it, these funds will be coming from ESSER 2 Action 2 and ESSER 3 Action 2. So I would ask the board to review this contract very, very carefully. The Arbinger Institute charges about $500 per hour for their services. 1 day of the superintendent evaluation priority setting is $5,350. I would also question, who are the 12 implementation specialists who will be trained at a cost of $895 per person? And which schools will you be piloting for this project, where the top of the scope of work says pilot schools? So this is a lot of money to spend. The Arbinger Institute is a company out of the state of Utah. Why did we get private money for these services before, and now we're using our ESSER monies? Could we use our ESSER monies for something that's going to have a better impact directly to our students? $500,000. Thank you.
Seeing no other public comment, board member Gode, board colleague Gode.
Thank you, Vice President Collins. I would like to request the Arbinger Institute to come up and give the public a quick overview, because this is entirely different than what was done by the Arbinger Institute before, and talk about the 4 schools that they are working with and other things that they're doing. So I'll be quiet and give you the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. I'm grateful to be here with all of you. So yeah, a couple things about this particular contract. As many of you know, we came in early on to help with the strategic planning process, and in addition to the board and cabinet development. So we've actually been engaged as well to help with the execution of that plan. So part of this contract, there's 2 parts to it. Part of this contract is actually the ongoing work with the continuous refinement and development and execution of the strategic plan. The second part of that is obviously the work that we're doing within schools. We have 4 pilot schools: Progress Elementary, Claiborne Elementary, Scotlandville Middle School, and Scotlandville Magnet. And those schools are all in the process of doing outward mindset training within their own schools to help with their own professional development. And so the pilot school piece of that was actually approved last year to do, but those funds were not used. Only a small portion of them were used, and then the contract lapsed. And so if you think about the 2 contracts, they ended up layering on top of each other, and then the ongoing support with the strategic plan. So these are 2 different parts of those as we move forward with them. This is about an investment in the future for the district. This is all work that is service-based. So in other words, if we're not bringing value to that, then you don't have us come. But we're doing that work, and it's only paid as we do that work within those schools moving forward. And so that money was not spent last year because those pilot schools did not start until June of this year as we started moving forward with it. And so that had already been previously approved. It's just moving that contract to this period of time. And then the rest of it's the continuous ongoing work that we're doing with the strategic plan. And again, that's an investment moving forward. We made a commitment to the public here that plan would be a rolling, ongoing plan where we would continually improve that plan based on what we learned each year to move that work forward, and to continually measure, improve, and report performance to that plan, as you saw in the report that the superintendent gave recently on the state of the district as compared to the plan that they put together. So that's the work of it. It's again 2 parts to it. It wouldn't normally be this, other than we're kind of sitting on top of 2 parts of that contract in one space.
And could you address the issue about the new board that will be coming on in January? Because you'll be working with them.
Yes, and so that would be after those board members were in place. And so that we certainly know there'll be a change, but we did board development early on. We'll do board development again with those new board members that come on board.
And those new board members will also inherit the strategic plan, but also inherit the responsibility to update the strategic plan.
That's correct.
So you will be helping all of the new board members do that also.
Yeah. We want to engage all of them in the development of that plan going forward. Also address the question that was brought up around who are the implementation specialists. Our work is actually to not be dependent on us. It's to move that work going forward. And so we've actually spent the summer training teachers and implementation specialists inside those schools that will carry that work forward insofar as they're in those schools. And so we spent today actually going and visiting with 2 of those schools and seeing the work as it progresses. So this is just a start of an investment again in the future of the district going forward.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
No, I admit that I just have a general discomfort with this one. And I appreciate the work that you all did with the board development, but and how were the pilot schools determined? Who? Well, what was the matrix? What was the matrix?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, as we were doing the strategic plan and introducing the cabinet and board outward mindset work, and people were seeing the value that could actually be provided by that being inside schools. We actually were invited to come and present at I think summer before last to the Institute for all of our principals. Those principals were very interested to bring it to the schools. And so we elected that we would do a pilot. And we have a partnership with LSU. It's a partnership that you're involved in as well, that's doing the research on the impact of those pilots. And so that we make sure that before any decisions are made about going into further schools, that you as a board have the data to do that. And so these schools were selected primarily because they're in the same region, close together. There were many schools that wanted to do this. These were 4 schools, feeder schools in the same general area. So that allowed us to do it at a much less expensive economies of scale. We could bring those teachers, those principals together to actually do that work. And so, you know what?
And also to be able to see long-term effect, obviously,
Yes.
too.
Yeah, to see the long-term effect. So there'll be, there's baseline data that's been gathered. There'll be data that will be gathered over time of the impact of this work
I mean,
to determine if it's effective. And again, this work's part of the effort of the strategic
it's
plan.
a huge price tag, and I would feel more confident in the expenditure if the focus was choosing X number of schools that are struggling by X, ABC definition of a struggling school, or our CIR schools.
The
I mean, 15% of this is our books. Not saying anything is wrong with giving parents the Living with an Outward Mindset book, but that's $87,000. And I've not heard an articulation of I just admit that I'm struggling with this. Now, I could, if my colleagues would be willing to entertain moving, like bifurcating this maybe, and separating Arbinger from it, and letting Arbinger maybe go without recommendation or something to that effect, versus me voting no, and we have 5 people here. I just have great heartburn, and I'm just being upfront. Is that doable? Okay.
We would need a motion to bifurcate with a second.
Okay. As me being presiding chair, I prefer not to be the first one. And then,
Sir, we could accept a friendly amendment.
okay.
I
Thank
would
you, Mr.
accept a
Golday.
friendly
Thank
amendment
you, Mr. Golday.
if
Okay.
Mr. Baloo would accept.
So-
Yes, I'm sorry.
So the friendly amendment is to motion to bifurcate the item with Arbinger as a separate item and the other items to be taken together. Okay.
Oh,
Just to clarify, is this that we're going to move the Arbinger without recommendation and the others that we are?
the
We're
the
going-
first thing is just separating it. and
Okay.
then separating it, and then we'll vote in global, if you will, on A through H. No, A through I. Oh, that's a miss. H, I. What happened to the I? So A through H, and then J will be standalone, and we'll vote separately on that. And a motion has not been proposed.
And I'm accepting
Specific to that.
I'm accepting the friendly amendment under the assumption that we will vote with integrity to pass it without recommendation.
Okay. And so then that's a amended motion. Do we need, help me with the process? I
Oh,
need to,
yeah, you have a motion and a second now to bifurcate the item.
and so then discussion.
Yes,
on-
we'll need board comment.
Okay. Well, I made my comment. Colleague Ware Jackson, did you want to comment on the bifurcation?
Just separate it and you can do whatever
Okay.
you need to do on it separately.
You need to go to the public now.
All right. Public on the bifurcation. Taking just this one item and considering it separately. Oh, when we come back. When we got to still go through the process of coming back. Okay. Okay. And so now back to the board and board colleague Dyson.
Yes, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we move this to without recommendation, to the September meeting, regular board meeting.
So all of the items.
No,
Oh,
I guess we have to,
So Ms. Dyson,
so when,
that's okay.
okay, first we get it,
We need to handle the bifurcation
Okay.
first, take a vote. Once that passes, we'll then consider the first A through H in one vote, and then the J in a separate vote.
Mr. General Counsel, as a point of order, could we reverse the order and take Arbinger first and then the other six after second?
Are you amending your motion to do that?
Yes,
Yes.
because I would like to have the Arbinger vote first before we vote on the rest.
I don't see any comment from the
If there's
board
no
on
objection from the board, we'll do that.
Okay. Do I need to go back to the public on the first? Okay. Seeing no comment from the public. Back to the board, seeing no request to speak from the board. We need to give our Madam Secretary a minute to get the motion as amended correctly in the system.
Please vote. And this is just on the bifurcation. The motion carries.
Okay, so now we'll take up a motion.
Move that we send the Arbinger Institute contract to the the upcoming regular meeting in September without recommendation.
I second.
All righty. And, oh, I wrote blue. And, yes. Okay, so no board requests to speak, so moving forward with public comment. Seeing no public comment, back to the board. Seeing no requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Okay, so then going back to items A through H.
So moved.
All right. All righty. Board colleague Ware Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Dr. Narcisse, I'll go back to our conversation yesterday again around the, let's see what it's called. The Empower, what is it? ED, how many of them? The Empower contracts. I was asking around the makeup of the advisory committees and what those roles are. It's actually B, C, D, and E. And you mentioned that they would be ready to present what those differences were between the April board memo that's exactly the same as the September board memo with dollar differences. In April, it was 18,750, I believe, and now it's 75,000, and they are the exact same memo saying the same thing. And I asked about the where we are in that process and whether what are the deliverables compared to what was in the April vote, and you were going to expound on that or have them do so.
Yes, so Dr. Bethley, who's our federal programs, who was a part of our process, will run you through a presentation on it.
Thank you.
Dr. Bethley?
Rest the letters, I apologize. That is my fault. The April memo, which had the smaller amount, was for the 3 deliverables. And so when I do some of the memos, I cut and paste. And so I realized it was the wrong one. So Miss April will provide you guys with the correct memo.
I'm uploading them to Board Docs now.
Okay. Okay, so I do have a presentation for Reimagine. Okay, so the Reimagine grant is a grant that we had to apply for. It is different from the other ESSER budgets that we have presented to you. So Reimagine is split into 2 phases. It's the planning stage and the implementation phase. So the contracts that you see before you is a part of the planning stage. And the memo that we would like for you, the contract to approve, it consists of the remaining of the deliverables, which you will see in the memo. So the planning phase involves working with Empower to develop milestones for the deliverables for phase 1.
Dr. Bethley, could you tell me who Empower is?
Okay, Empower is the consultant that we had to select from the vendor guide, in which the State Department of Education is, they are the ones who put us in touch with Empower, and they are the consultants, the vendors that are helping us with this work. They are helping us plan. We're in the planning stages so that we can receive the additional funds for the implementation stage. Okay. So the 2 schools that's a part of this grant is, of course, Baton Rouge Center of Visual and Performing Arts, and also Baton Rouge Flame. So the first phase of funding, the state allocated us $300,000.
I'm sorry, Dr. But I just want to make sure the board has in the public full context. A part of the grant to apply for this grant requirements was to choose schools that had a very successful impact in our school system. When you pull our data, the 2 most successful schools in terms of success is determined to waiting lists and those things, or the schools that most families would like to go to, it falls under BRCVPA and Baton Rouge Foreign Language Academic Immersion. And because the grant was supposed to go specifically to expand your most successful schools, that's how those two schools were chosen in that space. And our grant that you'll hear Dr. Bethley talk about to write about was for us to make the proposal to expand BR CVPA and BR Flame to pre-K 8. And so that's what she'll talk you through. Thank you, Dr. Bethley.
And as you can see on the slide, that is the proposal to expand our pre-K and to expand 6th and 7th and 8th grade until the 2026 school year. And if the State Department approves us the planning, then we will receive the additional funding in phase 2. So ESSER 3 incentive is a special grant that we had to apply for as a district. And it is all of the Reimagine initiatives are funded with the ESSER 3 incentive grant. So phase 1 of funding has been approved by the State Department of Education. So our timeline for the Reimagine process. So September of 2021, the district had discussions about the Reimagine process with the State Department. December of 2021, we had to fill in the application process. February of 2022, the State Department awarded us the grant amount. So April of 2022, you saw several contracts that the board approved so that we can do the first 3 deliverables. So June of 2022 is when we met with Empower and we discussed milestones for the implementation of phase 2. So now we're in September of 2022, and now we are asking for the board to approve the contracts for Empower to finish the planning phase. The anticipated school year for implementation for phase 2 will be 2023-2024. The next slide captures the award letter that was submitted to Dr. Narcisse on behalf of the State Department of Education. And as you can see, the purpose of the document was to basically share the actions that were awarded to us, and to that this time they informed us that Empower would be our vendor that we will contract with. And as you can see, there were schools, because Helix is a charter school, but the funding flows through us. And so that's why Helix was one of the schools also that received the allocation. But as you can see, their funding phase 1 is $300,000. And then if everything is approved, then they will receive $330,000. Then you see Baton Rouge Visual and Performing Arts. You see Baton Rouge Foreign Language Academic Immersion. And then at the time, you see Capitol High, which was going to be supported by KIP. But at the time, well, after that, KIP has pulled out. But we have been in conversations with the State Department. And if we follow the same plan, then we can keep the funding for Capitol. If not, we would have to return the funds. So the rationale for the expansion of the grant, basically, it is a direct reflection of the district's strategic plan to expand our highest performing, in demand, and unique school models like Dr. Narcisse mentioned earlier. The Reimagine action will contribute to the additional seats at both schools, and these schools are in high demand. So the data supports to justify the expansion. The team reviewed the school performance scores of each school and also the LEAP data, and then also the capacity data at each school. So the district currently has one middle school option with a model focus on visual and performing arts and one middle school option with the same model. So this grant is going to allow us the opportunity to provide more seats. So our next steps at the next board meeting, the consultant for Empower will present to you, and that is one of the deliverables, and we receive points. So we have to have so many points so that we can go to the next level. So she will present to you next Thursday, and then also the spring of 2023. The Reimagine Advisory Committee will continue to engage in ongoing meetings to meet the program deliverables. And please feel free to review the Reimagine Participant Guide for additional information. And I've provided Ms. April with a copy of the guide so that.
Okay, and I'd like to add one other additional piece too. What we did do when we were applying for the two programs, because it was a competitive application, we did not, we shared with leaders, but we told leaders to not engage with parents as of yet because we wanted to make sure that we would actually get the grant. And now that we're going to have a conversation with the consultants, we did talk to both principals. I see one of them are here. The next stage will be to now talk with Empower and bringing on families and parents to now be able to go down to this next stage. So we had to go through an actual sequence, as you can imagine, because we didn't want to get too far ahead and have these conversations without knowing if the dollars were going to be, if we were going to actually win the grant, which we have. And so I think that this will be a great addition to expansion in both of those schools.
As far as the expansions go, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at the three deliverables, the goals and the progress. So we've been meeting, and have we gotten the advisory committee together and the membership?
Yes, ma'am.
April and
Yes, ma'am. Some of the members are here today. Would you all raise your hand?
and for all of the different schools.
I'm sorry, board colleague. I was prepared to say after the presentation, your time is expired, but I dropped the ball. So your time is expired because you see, we're in 7 minutes, but we decided, we gave had a consensus that we wouldn't cut off staff while they were presenting during our 5 minutes of time. But she was presenting in response to your question, and so then that your time does not pause, then your time is now expired. But you know, you can come back after the, did we do the public already?
Vote on it anyway, right?
Yeah. All right.
Interesting.
So this is the issue I have. And if by chance the next phase comes up and I'm still here, I don't think the timeline really is going to permit that. But if, I would have to vote no unless, see, this idea, and you probably, I'm sure everybody here was, when we did the tax plan, remember the idea of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade came up to expand Flame. And on the surface, it sounds like an amazing idea. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but we didn't do it at the time because then it was recognized that unintended consequence to Westdale Middle's campus, which is why, for the gazillionth, millionth time, I've expressed that I believe it is very important to do a thorough review of all of our programming, and then we can make strategic decisions. So what I am prayerful of is that this Empower Schools situation is going to take into account that without a thorough review and intentional mitigation, there will be major negative consequences to Westdale Middle's current programming should we expand Baton Rouge Flames 6, 7, and 8. That's why we can't look at this stuff in silos. We have to go ahead and say, these are all our current programmings. Some of them, nice idea, but they trash. Some of them, nice idea and they're amazing. Some of them, nice idea and could use a little support. And then we can do a better job of saying this new stuff or this expansion of this great stuff, because then we can take stuff into account. So I just want to say that while, you know, at this point, we're just accepting money that was already approved for this to happen. When it comes to the next phase of it, hopefully the board have insist that we are deliberate as a body in making sure we don't cause harm to Westdale in the process of helping Baton Rouge Flame continue to be great. Because see, ideally, you wouldn't just go just through 8th grade. At some point, we would do an IB program all the way to 12th grade. And so, did I say that one right, IB? Yes, thank you very much. And so, and that's a great idea and way to move forward, but we don't want to hurt other schools when we helping some campuses. We don't want to turn around and hurt others. And so that's all I wanted to say. Oh, and real quick, for clarity, and you said this, but I just want to be very clear. The inclusion of Helix and Capitol High, those, they applied on their own, and this is just passed through to us.
Helix applied on their own. We applied for Capital, you know, under the understanding that KIP was going to be a partnership with us.
But that's not the kids. Do y'all have to amend the application?
So we've been in discussion with the state. As you know, our goal is to get capital back. Once we get capital back, we will use these dollars to be able to, for the capital project.
Okay. Okay, but I guess the short answer is
We'll have to amend. We'll have to work with the state
To amend.
to amend.
to amend. Yes,
Yes,
that's correct. So it's,
All right.
but we're excited to keep the funds for capital when we get it back.
Okay. Board colleague Gode.
Yes, thank you, Vice President Collins. I just wanted to echo what she said earlier about we need to look at this in total context, because not only do we have Westdale, we also have the conservatory school that will be coming up. So we really need to look at this in context. But I would also like that context to be not will it hurt Westdale, but the context to be what is in the best service of all of our students.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think that's what you meant, but I just want to be clear in that I'm not out trying to protect a school against another school or anything like that. I would like to have a discussion of how we can best service all students that go through that. So I just want to be clear on that. Thank you.
All right. And board member Ware Jackson.
But I'm not supposed to speak again, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. You waiting for the
Yeah.
comeback after the public comment. Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, so public comment on item, we still on item C1. Our sister Karonda Corley.
And we're gonna end by 8, so. And we're ending at 8, right? Is it 9? Okay.
They gotta see you because I gotta see them too. Good afternoon. Karonda Corley, parent disabilities advocate, nationally, locally, regionally, statewide. I would like to first and foremost start off with, it is a crying shame. It should be criminalized for us to actually have programming that we do not allow accessible to all kids. See, this little child right here, he may not be very verbal English-wise, but he could sing Frozen, Let It Go in Turkish. Now, I don't know Turkish, and I didn't teach it to him, but that dog on YouTube is something else. He likes to learn many languages, and I just spoke with Dr. Narcisse at the Bessie Board in regards to allowing ASL, American Sign Language, be taught to our children as a substitute for a foreign language, because after they complete 2 years, they can actually get a certification. And we have a dire need for American Sign Language interpreters. See, my child may not be able to take Latin or Mandarin when he get in middle school and high school, but he can definitely take American Sign Language because that's his first language. We have a critical shortage nationally and globally for American Sign Language interpreters, and yet that has never come to the forefront at this body. Additionally, including capital, that was not presented at Bessie. And I know several of our board members were there when the programs for Capital High were presented. It was medical, IT, and a cultural tourism. A language expansion was never discussed. So that's something that you actually need to bring before Bessie as well. We have to be mindful of when we are actually not being transparent with our people. And when I say our people, I'm talking about everybody that's here, but I'm also talking about your parents who have their children in your school every single day. Because when we give dollars towards something that we have not discussed and asked the families who have their children there, if that's something that they would need or that they would benefit from, then it's problematic, because then you're wasting money on something that they may not do. But I know that we have American Sign Language interpreters sitting present here at this meeting for individuals that are deaf, hard of hearing, and those that are nonverbal as an American Disabilities Act accommodation. That's something that we need to make a priority. That's something we should have at the forefront. And I hope that y'all take that into consideration and start building with ASL. Thank you.
Seeing,
Ms. Collins, we need to suspend the meeting temporarily. We've fallen below a quorum.
okay,
Per policy, we're supposed to suspend the meeting temporarily until the
So-
board member returns.
suspend or recess, or we using that term interchangeably? Should I recess for 5 minutes?
I would suspend, yeah,
Oh, okay.
recess and,
I'm sorry. I'm thinking state legislature, okay? My bad. All right. Okay. 5 minutes? We can put a time on it. Oh, till she returns, okay. All right. And so we are resuming. Okay. So then we have no, we finished public comment. The issue is an emergency for somebody that's doing a presentation on a ladder item. And our secretary that does the vote is juggling that. I guess I could I? I could. That's right. All right, so let's do well, no, I don't want to throw her off. Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, we could go for it. Yes, colleague Ware Jackson, proceed.
Here's a little bit of a problem because we have a quorum here. If one person does not vote for all of this, it is not going forward. And the information we had wrong information in the backup. We've got some questions around when this actually hits and when we start rebuilding BRCVPA. Other questions around flame and how that affects the bigger picture, which we do not have a comprehensive plan yet. Back to my conversation yesterday, Dr. Narcisse, a little bit of the cart before the horse here, but this time we get to blame it on the state because they offered this. We're doing that. We got these 2 schools. No parental input on this. Still some principals asking questions. Bottom line is, I can't say yes on this. And, we pulled this other thing out, and I apologize. I was supposed to ask to bifurcate the whole thing, but I didn't, and now I'm looking at information that is new.
Colleague, you want to put that in the form of a motion?
Yep.
Substitute motion?
Move these 3, all of this in power.
4, so that's 4 of them. B, C, D.
Point of order, ma'am, they're not bifurcated. You would have to vote to bifurcate first.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So
yes.
if we delay, we have to delay all.
Well, would you like to instead offer
Delay
a
all.
motion to move without recommendation?
The
As
rest.
we did the other? Well, just the whole, all of the remaining A through H.
Yeah.
Because they're not, as he correctly pointed out, they're not already bifurcated.
And by then we'll have all the correct backup next time. And we'll be ready to roll.
Okay. And hold up, let me make sure I have my notes together. Yeah, is that a friendly,
I think I made.
in Dyson? Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's good. Without recommendation.
Friendly to move without. Okay, all righty. And then colleague Godet, you still need to speak. Okay. And seeing no other requests to speak from the board. Any requests to speak on the moving forward? And then we need to go to the public on the moving forward without recommendation. Seeing no public comment on moving it forward without recommendation. Back to the board. Seeing no requests to speak. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Okay, we are at 2 hours and 15 minutes. We have several pages of items moving forward. And so we have our rules in place on time limits when we request to speak, but let us be mindful, perhaps. I can ask my colleagues to be mindful that if something can be asked after the meeting and it's not going to hurt anything, maybe that's what we can do. All right, item C2, professional services contracts, IDEA, consideration of a request for the approval of professional services agreements between East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and the following. A, Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University and Agriculture and Mechanical College on behalf of its Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center in the amount of $52,000 to provide professional development and specialized supports for autism services. Funding source, IDEA 611. And then item B, Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University and Agriculture and Mechanical College on behalf of its Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center in the amount of $65,000 to provide high-quality professional development and specialized support for exceptional student services to employ instructional strategies to address the students with disability group. Can I get a motion? Board Member Ballou, can I get a second? Board Member Goday. Seeing a request to speak from the board, going to the public, and item 2 from Sister Karonda Corley, public comment.
First and foremost, I'm against it. So let me explain why I'm against it. You trying to tell him you're against it too? Okay. So he said he's against it too, and he's a child that benefit from IDEA funding. So let me explain the reason that we are against it. It talk about LSU providing instructional strategies for individuals to support children with autism. This is a child with autism in EBR school system at Northeast Elementary. Go Vikings. But he don't have no teacher. He don't have a special ed teacher. He don't have a regular ed teacher. He don't have an art or a music teacher. He don't have a librarian. They don't have a nurse or a clinic. And he don't have a bus. Now, oh, and let me add to that they don't have a cafeteria manager. They have to share one with the high school. Now, that's a whole hell of a lot of positions that we don't have. So how are you going to justify spending IDEA money to teach people support strategies that don't exist? They not there. They not in the classroom. You know who teaching him? Paraprofessionals, and that's illegal. I have the letter to support that too on the letterhead. Just in case somebody want to try to say I'm slandering or defaming the school, I'm not. I watched that principal, Dr. Janice Shows, and that assistant principal, Miss Espinoza, break their neck and back trying to give the staff their breaks like they're supposed to have, and also with supporting each and every person and child in that school. But how exactly is my child, who's in 3rd grade that have to take the LEAP test, go be able to take it if he don't have a special ed teacher? How exactly is LSU going to provide them with some support and strategies if there is no one there? Because that teacher left. That teacher was new to the school system August 1st and was gone by August 29th. So when we want to talk about problems, it's real problems. And we're not about to piss away over $100,000 of IDEA funding for invisible people. Invisible, because they're not there in the classrooms. So again, I ask, who exactly they supposed to educate and provide supports to? Maybe we need to have them give some funding towards providing our families with the supports, because it seems like mothers like me, I'm working in every single position up in there. I'm his bus driver, his cafeteria manager, his paraprofessional that transition him into the building and out. I'm his nurse because I stay in the school parking lot in case something happened, because we do know that it took ambulance over 2 hours to get there when he had a medical emergency. When they don't know what to do, I'm the one that's there. So I'm actually the guidance counselor assistant too. We're going to have a problem if you try to spend this IDEA money that way, because the people don't exist. And you want to try to give it to LSU, but let me tell you, this is an OCR violation. This is a 504 Rehabilitation Act violation. Oh, and 501 too. Let me tell you that one. There's different parts of 504 Rehabilitation Act that I think y'all need to look at, because this is violating all of them. And this meeting does too. Thank you kindly. He would tell you thank you kindly, but we definitely don't need to spend that money on that. And I love you, Mr. Smith and Dr. Robinson, but we can't do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak, seeing no other public comment, board colleague Ware Jackson.
I'd like the superintendent and or the general counsel to address that, please. Those concerns around the shortages in the schools and in that particular area, since this is related to that. Thank you.
I just want to make sure I answer your question, Board Member Jackson. You would like me to respond to shortages?
Concerns of the previous speaker.
Let me get, Mr. Smith is here from the Special Education Department. We could have him help respond to that.
Start calling down violations on.
Ms. Corley,
I can
about
speak.
violations.
I can speak to the contract, and I'll be specific about the shortage. We do have a vacancy at her particular site where her child attends. We started the school year with a teacher, but for whatever reason, that teacher resigned, and so we're in the process of trying to identify another teacher. Now, as a reference to this particular pot of money, is not the IDEA funds that generally will service kids. It's IDEA redesign funds, which is 611, that is more competitive. And these two contracts are contracts that that with that redesign money, you have to pretty much shop off the state's vendor list. You kind of remember how we did with curriculum, tier 1 curriculum. We could spend certain pot of money on certain vendors that the state has identified. So LaSard is one of those vendors that has been identified as by the State Department that can offer the professional development as it relates to the redesign money, IDEA. So it's a separate pot than normally the IDEA that I think Ms. Crowley was referring to. But we do have a vacancy currently at that's Northeast.
Yeah, I realize that. Thank you. Right. Just want to make sure we're not swimming in some shark-infested waters. Thank you.
You yield the rest of your time, board colleague? Okay. All right, so seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item C3, professional services contracts from the general fund. Consideration of a request for the approval of professional services contracts between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and the following. A, Hanover Research in the amount of $125,000 to provide a strategy membership program evaluation and research services. B, Corwin Press in the amount of $22,000 to provide professional learning sessions. C, Louisiana Business Inc., doing business as the Leadership Academy in the amount of $147,680 to provide professional development. D, Junior Achievement in the amount of $57,200 to provide support services for students. Can I get a motion? All right. Board Member Baloo and Board Member Gode seconds. Seeing no request to speak from the board and seeing no public comment cards on this item, and then back to the board. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item C4. Grant 21st Century. Recommended action, consideration of a request for the approval of A, Louisiana Department of Education 21st Century Community Learning Center grant award in the amount of $3,720,000. And then B, professional services contract with Simpson Educational Consulting, LLC, in the amount of $132,000 to serve as the project director, ed liaison. Can I get a motion? Gode and Baloo seconds. Seeing no request to speak from the board. Seeing no comment cards submitted for item C4 from the public. Back to the board. Seeing no request to speak from the board. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item C5, eliminated job descriptions. Consideration of a request for the approval to eliminate the obsolete job descriptions as referenced in the document. Eliminated job descriptions. Can I get a motion? Board Member Gode and seconded by Baloo. A quick question I have. And if I overlooked it, I apologize. Just give me some background on how the positions were determined as obsolete. How did we define obsolete?
Ms. Hall, can you please come up?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Just to be succinct, so we looked at the last 3 to 5 years. If these positions haven't been used within the last 3 to 5 years, that's what would determine them to be obsolete.
Thank you. That sounds simple enough, and I would imagine effective to get done what you wanted. And then just how many roundabout? You don't have to give me exact, but
So today is 74. The last time was 46. So now we're at a total of 120 if you approve it tonight.
okay. Thank you. And so then 5. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have anything at first. Okay, board colleague Dyson.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you for coming in and just trying to clean up our space. It's been, long overdue, and I just appreciate the efforts here and cleaning it and streamlining and getting this corrected. So thank you so much.
And seeing no other requests to speak from the board, comment card submitted on this item by Sister Karanda Corley.
We respect our ASL interpreters, so I don't walk past them until they finish signing, for those that are viewing, just in case the public wonders why I wait. But as it relates to this, I'm not about to thank anybody for eliminating any job descriptions because we don't have people in the classroom. Have you taken a good walk through the 83 schools that we have? Take a walk through them. Your principals are tired. Your assistant principals are tired. Your dean of students are tired. Dr. Robinson, Mr. Smith, and all of them are tired because they working day in and day out. We are committing an EEOC violation because they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Y'all can look at them and tell they tired. Miss Smith, aren't you tired? I know they tired. Because I can call them and they can't answer the phone because they in a meeting every single day. All day. Nobody can answer the phone because they in a meeting. Talk to the parents. They in a meeting. What a principal? In a meeting. That's the answer. In a meeting. Job descriptions being eliminated. Why? We don't have the people. Do you know how many people we have lost? We have over 20, every single meeting. We have more than 10 pages of people that have left. It don't say that we done hired some more. We got signs out talking about we hiring. Substitutes and everything in between. We need Jesus, Moses. We need Noah in the ark. We need Meshach and Abednego. We need a ram in the bush. Because we don't have no people in the classroom. We don't have no cafeteria workers, and we just starting to try to get some bus drivers. The kids can't get to school. Once they finally get there, they can't eat. Ain't no food. Once they finally get some food, they go in the classroom. Ain't nobody there to teach. And you want to eliminate a job description? We need to be creating some. Let me start with, let's create having some of these parents that actually are qualified, that can actually help fill that gap, come in and actually help. Because we about to give a whole hell of a lot of money to security officers, and they not about to, oh, what are they going to teach? You know, it's a federal violation for them to interact with this child because he is federally protected. We can go there all day and night, but OCR already gave a letter for that. I think y'all better start looking at what you're trying to eliminate and start looking at what you should not be eliminating. We need some psychologists. If you think I'm lying, I can give you the recording from his IEP because the school system recorded it without my permission and my consent. That's what we need. We need some more lawyers because Mr. Shamlin is only one person, but he definitely wears 50 million hats. So create some more jobs.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment cards. Back to the board and seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong, I'm sorry. Thank you.
The motion carries.
Moving forward with item C6, request for proposals on internet and WAN. Consideration, recommended action is consideration of a request to authorize staff to issue an RFP, which is a request for proposals, select a vendor, and negotiate and execute a contract with the selected vendor for internet and WAN circuit services. Can I get a motion? Board Member Gode and Board Member Ware Jackson. Board colleague Dyson.
I just have a question about the wording of this item. don't we usually just request that the RFP be let and then it comes back to us what the committee has decided? And then we go to executing the contract?
It depends on the situation.
Negotiating.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. It does, Ms. Dyson, depend on the situation. We've had items like this where because there was a time issue or because there was a need to move quickly, the board authorized execution and moving ahead. It is really at the leisure of the board. I can't speak to the reason for the language on this one. I would need the IT staff to do that because they're the ones who kind of proposed this. But it can be done either way based upon the desire of the board.
Yeah, I just kind of like to know why we're bypassing that and making it in one step. If I don't know if anyone's here that could provide that information. Is the contract about to expire and we didn't, or something?
I believe we've done this one this way in the past, and I think we used the same language from before. Ms. Jones can clarify that when she returns, but I
Yeah,
think
Ms.
so.
Jones, when she returns, we can get clarification for you on that.
Yeah. Okay.
Seeing, Board Colleague Gode.
Yes, just to follow up on my colleague's comments, since the internet and wide area network is such a key component to our future, and if I remember right, this is a 5-year contract. I guess I made the motion, so I can't can I give myself a friendly amendment?
If your second accepts,
Okay, I would like to make a friendly amendment that we allow, I don't know how you want to word it, I'll leave it up to the general counsel, but that they go out and solicit bids, but then come back to us for the approval of the winning bid and the contract.
So you want to stop at to issue a request for approval? Selective,
Because I want to be clear, I want them to come back with us and discuss who they've selected as the winner. Now, after, it's going to be just like we did with the HES contract. We selected HES and then they went off and filled out the final details of the contract. We didn't get involved in the middle of the contract details. But I would like to handle it in that same manner where they come back to us and discuss who they would like to select, and we vote on who to select, and then they go negotiate the contract. And I very much appreciate my colleague, Ms. Dyson, bringing that up. I had passed over that point, but I think she makes a very good point.
and Ms. Ware Jackson would need to, as a second, need to be in agreement. Yes.
all righty. Colleague Ware Jackson, did you have anything that you needed to?
Yeah, just wondering, I'm going to bring this up around some of our facilities have a difficult time with Wi-Fi, with internet, and I'm wondering if this we will consider that, or will this impact any of that? I know we have some schools that have a really difficult time with any kind of Wi-Fi.
So your question, Board Member Jackson, is will this resolve all the Wi-Fi issues? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Well,
we don't know.
yeah. So our goal is to resolve all the Wi-Fi issues. But I'd like to make sure when Ms. Jones get back, we can show you more accuracy about, which schools have Wi-Fi going really well and which don't. They do keep a record of that, and there's an actual table that they have that actually monitors those things. So maybe we can, when she comes back, we can be able to answer that specifically. She'll be back for before the board meeting next week.
Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, seeing no other requests to speak and seeing no public comment cards on item 6 submitted, coming back to the board, seeing no other requests to speak on this item, Madam Secretary, please. And Board Colleague Jill Dyson.
Yes, I just wanted to also say that I'd like us to make sure that we're looking at response time when there are outages and those kinds of things, and have a comparison with what we have now and what they're agreeing to on that. I don't know if that's in the matrix currently, but I think it should be. So, thank you.
All right. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
All right, moving forward with item C7. Recommended action, consideration of a request for the approval of the following memorandums of understanding between the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board and the Louisiana State University College of Human Services and Education School of Education to provide the following: A, mentor teachers, B, student teachers. Can I get a motion? Board colleague Dyson, seconded by board colleague Ware Jackson. Seeing no request to speak from the board, public comment from Coronda Corley.
So, this memorandum of understanding with LSU in regard to mentoring teachers and student teachers. Last week, we just had, oh, for the record, everyone, I'm going to speak a little louder because of his tablet so that everybody can hear me. So I don't want nobody thinking I'm screaming. I'm just going to speak louder because of his tablet. But we just had a presentation last week about a School of Education collaboration that we're going to do with Southern University. And we did not say anything about funding, how that's going to be funded. And so now we're providing a memorandum of understanding dealing with LSU that's kind of overlapping and doing almost the same exact thing. So I would greatly like, and I think everybody else in here would like to know, how are we going to do that? I learned today at a committee meeting that LSU actually committed to like 12 other school systems in the state as it related to social workers. And we had just did a memorandum of understanding with them for social workers. And it was stated during that task force that they don't even know how they're going to be able to fulfill that with the other 12, 13 school districts they have already made an obligation to, not including EBR. So how are we going to do this one with LSU? And we just did a board workshop last week where we did not say anything about funding, what that memorandum of understanding is going to include, etc. We didn't even say where that space is going to be created and the program will be held at, or how it's going to be run. So when you bring a memorandum of understanding like this, that is going to be almost duplicating the same thing, you need to actually explain answer all those questions that I just asked. And the reason I'm saying that is because right now, y'all are passing too many things that are still questionable, that every single person up on this board still have questions along with the people in the public. All you have to do is look at everybody's facial expressions. They looking like deer in headlights, just like some of you. I'm asking that we ask the real questions. And if we cannot answer it for the sake of every student every day, don't pass it by. Just deter it to another meeting until you can get those answers. But this here, a duplication of something that we still don't know how that one is going to be executed, we should not pass this one because we don't know how this one is going to be executed too. And I can stand here and wait because I know, Mr. Goday, you look like you got a question for me. So I can stand here and wait if you got a question for me. Okay. But that's what I just wanted to leave with y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak from the, seeing no other public comment to the board, I just want to, for the sake of public information, in regards to the previous comments, if you look at the backup materials, this is a zero cost and it's specific to some other mentoring that is needed. So for example, STEM education. It's very hard for us to get strong STEM education. It's hard to fill those spots and then also make sure that they are strong. And then the other is for the interns. And of course, we can always use some interns. And again, the actual cost on this, which is separate from what was discussed at the board workshop, is $0 and zero is free 99. Okay. All right. Board colleague, Mark Ballou.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Yeah, the idea of having student teachers in our schools is not novel. We had student teachers back when probably I was in first grade in this school system. So if you want to read the memorandum of understanding, it's clear that's what this is for. So thank you.
You're welcome. Board colleague Goday.
Pass.
All right, seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item C8, architectural selection for Brownfields Elementary. Consideration of a request for the approval of the Architectural Selection Committee's recommendation of domain architecture, APAC, to provide architectural design consulting services for the Brownfields Elementary project. This is part of our tax plan. Okay, can I get a motion and a second? Board colleague Ware Jackson. And a second by board colleague Ballou. Seeing no request to speak from the board. Public comment from Sister Karonda Corley.
Okay, so as it relates to Brownsfield Elementary, first and foremost, I am so excited that they're going to finally receive a new building because we are more than a year late of Brownsfield Elementary being rebuilt. So kudos. We're not on time, but I guess something is better than nothing, huh? I am very questionable about the architectural selection because we do have to consider that there are children that are twice exceptional. So let me explain what twice exceptional is because I did a lot of asking around in the school system and a lot of people did not know what it was. So twice exceptional means that you have a child with a disability, such as mine, that has autism, or he could have other health impairment, which that's his secondary exceptionality, but that could be his primary, right? But they can have a secondary exceptionality saying that they are gifted and talented. Because you do know that children that are gifted and talented receive IEPs as well, and they are covered under IDEA, which is why they're housed in our ESS department. So when we talk about rebuilding Brownsfield Elementary, we have to make sure that we are rebuilding that school so that it is in ADA compliant and handicap accessible. So when I say that, these two steps to my right That's not handicap accessible for somebody that's in a wheelchair. But the ramp that is behind Miss Ware Jackson, that is accessibility. But of course, for that person to go up that ramp, you're not in ADA compliance because you're making them have to go around this room to get to it. So when I say having architectural selection, we have to be mindful of that because you are penalized on new buildings that are not in ADA compliance by the federal government. And that can hinder and affect you when it comes to federal funding, considering that we get American Disabilities Act Title II funding. So I really and truly hope that you work with our ADA department, and I am more than happy to help them in any way possible to make sure that the building is in ADA compliance by having the button for individuals that are wheelchair bound or that are using 4-point walkers to be able to press so the door can open up like it does in your hospitals and at your mall, department stores, so that they can actually not be penalized, but they can have parking very close to a door, and so that the playground is in ADA compliance like it is at Jefferson Terrace for children that are wheelchair bound to actually be able to enjoy recess like their peers. That's what I'm hoping for, and I know right now we have not made that selection, but I hope we do, and you allow people like me or parents that have children with disabilities to be able to help with that. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Seeing no other cards for public comment, coming back to the board colleague Gode.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Vice President Collins. I just wanted to use this opportunity to express our sympathies to the principal architect of Domain Architecture, Mr. Sit Wong, who passed away unexpectedly a week ago, or a little bit more than a week ago, Monday a week. I actually had the opportunity to be in conversation with Mr. Wong the week before his death, and he has been in part of multiple architectural firms and has built multiple schools for this district. So as we do this, I would just like for us as a board to pass our sympathies on to his friends and family at Domain Architecture and his family in particular, our sympathy for his passing. And, it's sort of ironic that this comes up right at this very time. But I did not want his passing and the contribution he's made to our schools to go unnoticed. So no need for a motion or anything. I just wanted to add that comment into the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know because I was not aware. And so I appreciate you recognizing that. And so then, seeing no other requests to speak, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward to item C9, request for qualifications. Brownfields, I don't know why I want to put an S after Brown. Brownfields Elementary. Consideration of a request. Recommended action is consideration of a request for the authorization for staff to issue a request for qualifications to seek proposals to provide construction management at risk Seymour services for the Brownfields Elementary Tax Plan Project. And again, this is funds from our 10-year tax plan for school buildings and improvements. And Board Member Gode and Board Member Baloo. And then this is not a touch screen. Board colleague Jill Dyson.
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to get some clarity on this item versus CSRS doing our management of the project. I don't know if that's easy to explain the difference.
Yes, Ms. Scott Spalding, can you come up?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
So CSRS will manage this project. They support the definition related to, or the description rather, related to the RFQ. And the goal is to bring on the construction company to be able to work side by side with the design, the architect, to be able to ensure that we're mitigating timelines and supply chain issues, cost issues, to be able to build a school in the most fiscally responsible way.
So we're just bringing it earlier on in the
Correct.
process so
Correct.
that it can be designed in coordination.
Right.
I see. Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
thought this was something a little different, so thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, moving forward with, and seeing no public comment cards on item C9. Madam Secretary, and back to the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Okay, well, look, we're gonna suspend for 3 minutes because I need to use the restroom too, and I was trying to wait. But since my colleague got up, everybody that needs to use the restroom. All right. Where were we on that? Did we vote? Okay, so we fresh on 10. Okay. Item C10, school security resource officer salary. Consideration of a request to amend the school security resource officer hourly rate from $35 to $42 per hour. Can I get a motion? Go to, I'm smack. Go to Ambaloo. Well, I have a, help me understand, in comparison to teacher pay rate, what this looks like.
Vice President Collins, you're talking about the rate with the school resource
Yes, yes.
officer. We can share the teacher pay. Ms. Hall, did she walk down? Did she walk out? Give us 1 second. Ms. Smith, Ms. Hall. Actually, Ms. Lopez, do you have that number off the top of your head, please? We'll get Ms. Lopez is here as well.
Ms. Hall would probably be much more eloquent on explaining this than myself. So the teacher's pay scale, as you know, it depends how much a teacher makes. You go from a very early first year teacher with a bachelor's degree, and you can go all the way up to 40 years with a doctorate. So the range of hourly salary is tremendous, and it depends on lots of different factors.
Okay, so then, and Ms. Hall is behind you.
Oh, good.
So then, Ms. Hall, first year teacher with a bachelor's degree and a first year with whatever basic the minimum requirements. Okay, so first year teacher, minimum requirements, and first year school security resource officer, minimum requirements.
So minimum requirements, mid-40s, about 48,000 for a startup for a teacher, fresh out of school, bachelor's, no experience.
And then the security, what is this 42
security-
gonna end up being?
So the security officers, when we did the SROs, the job description, we wanted it to be, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, I think it was at 53.
All right.
Oh, the hourly rate?
Well, but
this is
we have to standardize to compare, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because correct me if I'm wrong, a salary schedule is not hourly; it's a salary schedule.
Correct. So this would be an hourly
annual
rate. Correct.
Comparison. I mean, if I could, can I get a friendly amendment to move with our recommendation? I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable being an institution of education with us being very aware that we already underpaying based on the study that we paid for. And I'm not saying this out of malice for law enforcement or security resource officers, but I cannot personally justify paying a support staff more than the front line. Like if we don't have them in the classroom, that the child ain't learning, and we not. And I know we talking about an 8% increase at some point in the future for all staff. But then, I mean, and they're going to include I just can't. So if I could be If my colleagues can entertain me, I'd appreciate it. Again, this is not a slight to the position itself. It is, I don't feel comfortable giving a higher financial priority to this position when, I mean, teachers are project managers. I just don't feel comfortable, so. And that, I done used up my time, so, board colleague, go day.
Yes, before we get into whether or not to accept the substitute motion or friendly amendment, I would like our Chief of Security to come up, please, sir. The question I have, because I do have some experience with hiring off-duty police and sheriff for security details, because I used to handle that for our subdivision and things. And my understanding is these rates are set by the police departments. These are not negotiated rates that we can go about and decide we're going to change. These are rates, either you accept that rate or you don't accept the employment of the people. So I just wanted to check if that's correct.
That is accurate. Yes, sir.
That is accurate. So we're not setting the salary rate. That is the salary we have to pay if we want to have the services. So I will not accept the friendly amendment because I think either we need to decide we want the services or not, because there's no way for us to get a lower price, because if we put a lower price, we won't get any police officers because they'll go work the other details.
That is
And they
correct.
don't have to accept these details. So look, I'm not saying the teachers aren't underpaid. Don't get me wrong at all. I'm all for doing that, but I think it's a misconception that we're setting this number, that we have the ability to set it, because if we come in with a lower number, we won't get any officers.
That is accurate. And the number was set with Chief Murphy Paul and Sheriff Sid Gotro.
And that's the same number that I know we pay, our homeowner association pays and all this. It's usually one set number across the parish, because that covers their insurance. It covers all the liabilities. If something happens, it's the sheriff office liability and the police office liability insurance that pays and all these sorts of things. So I just want us and the public to recognize that we're not negotiating the salary. This is a salary and this is what it comes. So thank you.
Board colleague Baloo.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. As the second, I would be willing to, if Mr. Goday changes his mind, accept the friendly amendment just to get it to the full board where it really counts. But I would ask also that we change the title of the item for consideration, because this is not a salary. It's a negotiated or a contractual rate. It's not an employee. It's a rate we're paying with a partnered. Unless council has.
We can change it to school security resource officer rate.
Yeah,
Hourly rate.
perfect. And it refers to salary in the memo too, so maybe change that as well. Thank you. So is that, do you agree? Okay,
I just wanted to make sure I got to point out that this wasn't
right.
a number that you set.
And so then a friendly to move to without recommendation. All right. Thank you. And then public comment from Kathy Carmichael and Coranda Corley.
Good evening. I didn't know the order of events here, so maybe we've already discussed some things. Just to clarify, there are no currently any school resource officers. I know you can't answer back, but I just want to make sure, because if there are, then that means we would be in violation of what Mr. Gojay just said of paying them the rate that we're supposed to be paying them. So I just want clarification on that. And then also I wonder, will these employees be on a salary schedule? Like right now, a clerical person in step 40 gets $25. A bus driver in step 40 gets $28.57. And so these employees will now be making $42 per hour. So I just wanted to bring that up in relationship to making sure we're really looking at the other employees in our district and what they're making, because this whole year we've been talking a lot about giving teachers stipends. We give them a one-time stipend, and it seems really hard to pay them $7 more per hour. But when a stipend doesn't mean that you make more money per hour, it just means we give you a lump sum. So for us, and I understand that this is a set rate, I'd like to see the documentation from the sheriff's office or what have you, but I think we should just really put this into comparison with our other employees, particularly the teachers and the bus drivers and the clerical workers who serve a lot in a security role. You know, the bus drivers are doing a lot of work to keep our children safe. I know my youngest child didn't make it home until 5:25 p.m. this evening on the bus. Thank you.
Okay. So, school resource officers. The last time we spoke on this topic, I actually informed y'all about the Office of Civil Rights and OSEP and the U.S. Department of Ed disseminating information out as it relates to school systems bringing in SROs and the legal liability that you would be up under and all that goes with it. Have y'all taken the opportunity to review that information? That's question number one. Number two, what about all the children with disabilities that we have? What is that going to look like? I just told y'all an hour ago about this child not having not one single person that's needed to fulfill the legal obligation of his individualized education plan. In fact, I sent y'all an email every day since August 8th. I sent the last one last night around 12:34 a.m. I don't miss a day on sending y'all the email telling y'all what this child don't have. I even gave recommendations on central office staff, since our superintendent was filling the voids in other schools with people from central office, on who you could send to Northeast Elementary to fulfill that obligation. An SRO is not part of the legal obligation we have. And we were bamboozled when it came to this idea and stated that it was in relation to what happened at Uvalde, Texas. But the SRO disappeared when the shooting took place at Uvalde, Texas, and that was at an elementary school. Elementary schools are not getting SROs. When we talk about the SROs, when you read the job description, it says they're going to be in a classroom 60 to 70%. When are they going to actually be securing the premises? So you're about to bring in people that are not going to be able to fulfill a legal obligation you have to this federally protected child or any of the other federally protected ones that we have here. What you should do is look at increasing the wages of all our staff and look at culture competent curriculums, look at social emotional learning, trauma-informed best practices, conflict resolution, etc., to be taught in the classroom and dealing with our children every single day. Because that's how we get rid of the problem, not by constantly adding more SROs. So think about that. Thank you. I'm going to take back my 5 seconds for the next.
That is not doable, but we love you anyway.
I love y'all too.
All right. Look, for the next meeting, because there was a lot of back and forth on, and I'm using the term generically, and we've seen the position title in various forms meaning different things. So school resource officer. Come back to me or between now and the next meeting. I want to make sure that it's clear because my current understanding, and I was not at the previous meeting with the other two positions, no, yeah, I was. Okay, a lot of back and forth. Come back to me with, this is essentially, whether or not, excuse me, this is essentially more of the already existing SROs that come on campuses, sheriff and BRPD. F also make sure it's clear, does this SRO, they picking up just extra hours, or they tend to be on the campus Monday through Friday and they doing a full 40-hour week. F is a full, whatever the answers to that are, then based on that, what's comparable to our starting teacher. If they picking up extra hours, that mean they not doing, I'm assuming, 44 hours with us and 44 hours with, or 50, or some do well over 40 hours a week with the sheriff or the BRPD. So then what's comparable? And so just get that information to me. And then that can help with some of the decision making on my end. And then board colleague, go.
Yes, thank you. A couple of good questions came up. Could you describe what we have today for our security officers? Are we just continuing the past process, and what are we paying today for our SROs? Because that was a very good question.
So currently, we're paying 35 for the SROs that are in the schools. And again, Sheriff Sid Gotro, Chief Murphy Paul and Sheriff Sid Gotro negotiated the salary of 42.
Okay.
Understand that these officers can go and work detail for $60 an hour.
I
They're
understand.
choosing to come and work in this space and have given the district a lower rate.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. So we do have SROs in there. And then the other thing is recognize that these hourly numbers, there are no benefits attached to that. As we look at teacher salaries and things like that, you have to add 30-something% to the number to get with benefits. So you can see that. And then lastly, we have lots of these kinds of things because I know, for instance, we pay physical therapists and occupational therapists. The contract for that is $80 an hour for physical therapists and occupational therapists, because if we didn't pay that rate, we wouldn't get them. And so there's more to this than just a comparison to teachers is the only point I'm trying to make, because we do have a responsibility to make sure we have safe schools. And not only that, but the majority, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, the majority of our instances, or a large portion of them, come not from our students, but from outside people coming onto our campuses. So as you look at trying to do things within the schools, we're trying to do that, but we also need to make sure we provide security for outside people coming onto our campuses. So I just general points, but yes, we can postpone this to the next meeting and then look at that. But as we think about this, we need to think about it not only in comparison to teacher salaries, because teachers are well underpaid, but how does it fit into the whole scheme? Thank you.
Board colleague Blue.
Thank you. Mr. Goday already just covered what I was going to say.
Board colleague Ware Jackson.
At the last meeting, or maybe one before, there were questions around certain things that we wanted to make sure was in the contract. And I know Ms. Dyson had a list of things, and other board members had a list of things. And I just want to, my concern is around what our regular procedure is when an infraction occurs on the campus. What I do not want to see happen is a kid thrown into the back of a police car, and I don't want to see this add to the prison pipeline, so to speak. I just want to make sure, because there's been a lot of things that's happened between young black men and police officers, and there's been a lot of changes that's taken place within this discussion when we first started. So, and and there is concern, around the initial push was around what happened at an elementary school, yet we're not covering elementary schools. So, it just it just adds a lot of question as to, what we're doing, why we're doing it. So I want to make sure that our kids are safe and that our normal procedure is not interrupted by having a police officer or sheriff on board. Thank you.
Board colleague Dyson.
I just wanted to make it clear that I brought the original item because I feel that school safety is paramount, and keeping our students, their parents, their teachers and staff and administrators on site, volunteers, is a critical role that we have. And it was not in response to a particular event. I've been talking about this for years, and we're needing more coverage with each and every day as we see what is changing around us. And so it's an ongoing process, and I'm totally in agreement that we need to get this executed and get them on board just as quickly as possible. It's also my understanding that this can be used as a stopgap to then become able to potentially, like we had a board approved, have our own employees. And I also want to make sure we've got the accountability measures, the checklist, the daily checklist of what needs to be done hourly, daily, weekly. These are the things that have to be done. And a level of accountability that includes the principal being part of that evaluation. And is this person adhering to these requirements that are hopefully in the being written into the contract. So if that's all in there, then I'm totally supportive of this.
Council Shamlin.
Yeah, just briefly, I'm going to respond to Ms. Dyson, Ms. Evelyn White Jackson's concerns and questions. We've already met with the Sheriff's Office and the BRPD. I logged all of the concerns of the board members. I think I spoke with most of you or received email concerns. We have a detailed list of asks for those contracts. We've already had that discussion with those representatives. We're waiting for them to get us some information back so we can begin to formalize the actual contracts. And we're talking about for long-term SRO planning where we'll have full SRO offices in the schools. That'll take a while because there's training and some other requirements that I'm sure that we can speak more detail to. This is, I believe, a temporary approach until we can get those contracts in place to make sure that we have efficient and sufficient school security. So that's what this process is about. But the board's already approved us to negotiate and execute those contracts. So I'll keep you guys in the loop on the process and the status of that as we kind of move ahead. But we are in process, and all of your concerns have been logged. So I want to make sure everybody knows that.
All right. Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item C11, Broadmoor Middle School site abatement. Recommended action, consideration of a request for the authorization to advertise, accept, and award the contract for abatement services to the lowest bid, meeting the project specifications for the Broadmoor Middle site renovation as per the A plan to improve facilities, technology, discipline, and compensation, the tax plan, excuse me, as revised through February 22, 2018. Bids can be rejected for just cause in accordance with the Louisiana Public Bid Law. Motion. Board Colleague Baloo and Board Colleague Gode. Board Colleague Ware Jackson.
Quick question, that 15 million, is that the total budget for the project, or is this just abatement?
I believe that's the total budget for the project.
Mhm.
And abatement comes out of that total amount.
Okay, yeah, I thought so, I had to make sure. Thank you.
Seeing no other requests to speak from the board and seeing no public comment cards submitted, back to the board. Madam Secretary, please call the vote.
Please vote. The motion carries.
Moving forward with item D1, presentation on the Sustainable Community Schools model.
Evening, board. I have a slideshow that I think Ms. Kelly's going to put up. Thank you. Well, again, my name is Dr. Donnie Hale. I represent the Institute for Educational Leadership, aka the Coalition for Community Schools. I'm the Southern Regional Deputy Director, and so definitely pleased to be here before you today, coming from South Florida. But I just really want to share a little bit about community schools. And so really the thought of a community school, it really is a place and space for all kids and for all people. It really is the idea of thinking about schools being a hub for really the coordination of services for all students, families, starting from early elementary, early childhood, all the way through adulthood. And so in reality, as I've been reading and listening to your board meeting, it really is in alignment to a lot of things that you're currently doing. And so what I'm saying is nothing new to you, but really is in alignment to the great work that you're doing, but thinking about how to go deeper. I think I can. So really when thinking about a community school, really it's our vision that it's a community where everyone belongs, works together, and thrives together. You know, what we talk about in the community school space, it is about changing the conditions for all children to really live in a place where they can thrive, they can survive, but even more, it's the well-being of all people. And so when you look at this map, you begin to see that community schools are nothing new. They're all over the country. And so the idea is really thinking about how to really build them out, but also I'll share with you funding strategies on how to make them more sustainable, but also how to localize them. And so again, part of the mission really is about transforming public schools. And so again, schools are doing incredible things, but even as I heard tonight, is that oftentimes we're tasked, or we put a lot of tasks on teachers. We put a task on principals. We put tasks on parents. And the reality is that it really takes a community to do, you know, the work of, you know, helping students and families thrive, but it also takes us really rethinking about how we do that work. And so a community school is that place. So I want to share a video with you just to for you to think a little bit more about what is a community school. And before I go into that video, again, I'm not here trying to sell you on community schools, but really I want you to rethink about how schools play a significant part in our community. And so my work in South Florida, 8 years ago, I moved to South Florida to do work in three primarily Black and brown communities: Overtown, Liberty City, and Little Haiti. Those schools are historically challenged and stressed, but the one thing that I realized is that there wasn't a lack of money, there was a lack of coordination of services. And so through a generous donation from JP Morgan Chase and some other funders, we were able to put a coordinator in a building. And so again, the idea of a community school is to think about how you coordinate services within the context of the building. And I'll share some numbers with you later, but by putting a coordinator in a building, we're actually able to, and again, a salary of $50,000 was what we paid the coordinator. But really, that funding created an opportunity for us to really collaborate with and bring more money into the building. And so you'll hear me talk about that in a little bit.
What makes a school a great school? Caring for the whole child, expanding the horizons of learning, building relationships with families, working together to realize a shared vision. This is the school every student needs. This is a community school. Community schools are public schools that partner with stakeholders to create the conditions students need to thrive. Community schools can be found across the United States, and their numbers are growing fast. But what exactly makes a school a community school? They integrate student supports. Clinics, counselors, and other services ensure each and every student is ready to learn. They expand and enrich learning. Extended school days, summer programs, and real-world experiences help students reach their full potential. They engage families and communities. Partnering with residents to identify and meet community needs makes everyone feel safe, welcome, and involved in school. They lead in collaboration. Inclusive decision-making and peer learning builds trust among students, educators, families, and communities. When a school stands on these 4 pillars, it's a community school. Research supports this 4-pillar approach, but there's no one-size-fits-all model. Every community school is different because each community is different. Figuring out what it looks like in your community starts by getting actual community members involved. That's the full-time job of community school coordinators. They're the human bridge connecting all the partners and stakeholders that make community schools possible. So that's what makes a school a community school. Now, how do you pay for it? Startup costs like hiring a full-time coordinator can be raised from foundations or state and local governments. Tapping into existing funding and partnering with local businesses can bring in service providers. Sharing resources.
Stop there.
More established. Leaders can advocate for budgets.
I really do want to just stop there. There we go.
That sustain their impact.
There we go. So again, the idea of a community school, once you've seen one, you've only seen one. Again, it's locally developed. It is really about the place and the strategy, but it really is about voice. It's really about the idea of bringing in local stakeholders. Again, even as I sat here tonight and listened to folks come up and share their thoughts of their community, it really is about bringing people together to talk about what are the opportunities, but also seeing how rich it is, how rich and important it is to have voice from the community in developing something that works for all people. And so again, the idea of community school, again, it's nothing new, but it just becomes another strategy on thinking about how we can go deeper and serve the greater good of the community. A community school really has, the point of focus is having a coordinator in a building. And so again, today I got a chance to visit Capitol Elementary. And so I got a chance to meet Principal Carla Johnson that operated a community school here in 2018. And so I saw some incredible things where people were working together for a common good. I saw obviously academic performance go up as indicated by some reports, but I saw just a willingness for people to go an extra mile for students and families. I saw a desire for people to see, teachers taken care of, a desire to want to be in the building, but even more, I saw a leader that really could have support from another staff member to go that extra mile so that she can focus on one thing while that coordinator worked on another. And so to that point, when thinking about what a coordinator does, and so when you put a coordinator in a building, they're able to collaborate, connect, and bring in additional resources. And so $1 spent in the investment of a coordinator can yield $7 in return. And so what I mean is that when you're thinking about healthcare, when you're thinking about job opportunities, when you're thinking about ESL services, when you think about, even as I see the mom coming in and needing advocacy for her child, that coordinator can begin to find resources that'll support that student well beyond the school, as well as thinking about things on the weekend and in the summer. And so again, the idea of a community school is really thinking about like, how do we do this better together while also supporting the needs of a school. So when thinking about really this growth of community schools, so community schools continue to grow. So as you can see from the federal government, from the chart in 2010, the funding has gone up. So currently, we've advocated from IEL for an expansion of dollars for our community schools. So currently, in this round, actually, the grant is due on Monday. The federal grant is $68 million for this grant round. But for FY 2023, the funding has been requested for $468 million. And so again, there's going to be a lot of money to expand community schools. And my point in coming here is saying that there's a lot of great work taking place, and it's in alignment to what you're currently doing. But just for you to think about reconsidering taking a deeper dive in community schools, because again, there's a lot of funds taking place, or available, excuse me. And so, what does it look like? It really looks like a shared vision where people are working together, board, community members, teachers, and really determining what results are most important to you. And so, again, the value of IEL and the coalition, we really want to support the expansion of community schools, but even more, we want to align with superintendents and boards to really advance opportunities to support students and families. And then lastly, I just wanted to give a little bit at a time if there's any questions. But again, there's a lot of great work taking place in momentum. And again, superintendent, definitely enjoyed learning more about your 6 points. Because again, what you talk about, the idea of thinking about cradle to career aligns with the current work of community schools, but even more your pathways program and thinking about opportunities around dual enrollment and expansion that further accelerates the opportunities for students and families. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to mention, I do remember when we started the community school model at Capitol Elementary. And I remember the positive outcomes, significant outcomes there. I also remember hearing the statistics on evidence-based approaches on moving schools forward. And so I appreciate a model that is evidence-based that supports the facilitation of, that facilitates equity, because it's not good enough for, in something like this, it's not good enough to standardize what you're talking about for all schools, because each school has very different needs, and what this model is trying to help us, a school system to deliver. And so to have a coordinator that can be on a Capitol Elementary or a La Belle Aire Elementary or a Park Forest Elementary or a Bel Air High, all of those having very different and specific needs with different community partners that would be at play. One person or a handful of people or a team of people across the district would not suffice. It wouldn't maximize the concept. And I believe that that is why the model works, because, and I'm not against, some things do need to be centralized, and some things, and I believe this is one of them, it's best to take a more decentralized approach, because it makes more room for equity to take place. And so I appreciate the presentation, and I do hope that we move forward with resuming some of this and expanding. So thank you. Board colleague Gode.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Vice President Collins. I'm trying to digest what you said. And so could you please, and I'm just really talking from a lack of information or ignorance. Ignorance is something I'm good at. Let's take Highland Elementary, which is one of the elementary schools of my district. If we made that into a community school, what would change at that school? Who's there? How is it organized? How is it managed? I just don't understand the full concept.
Perfect, thank you. If I'm free to speak?
Yeah.
So part of the idea of putting a coordinator in that building would be to bring in additional resources. So thinking about one, healthcare, thinking about two, after-school programs, also thinking about professional development for teachers, financial resources, as well as professional development. But also thinking about how you do a needs assessment to determine what are the specific needs of that school. Also thinking about summer programs. So I'm sure that in that Highland, in that community, there's a lot of after-school programs. There's also nonprofits, there's churches, there's providers. They're probably doing a lot of great work in the school. But I'm sure the one thing that they don't do a whole lot of, they don't always communicate. So there's sometimes a duplication of services. So part of the idea of that coordinator would be to multiply and to understand who's being served in the building, but also to build on what you're currently doing in the district. So is this a middle school?
Elementary.
An elementary. So
It's just a random. It doesn't matter.
yeah, but just let me take it a little bit further and say, if we're thinking about it from a feeder pattern, because all school districts around the country are having a hard time keeping all their students in the building. Some of them are choosing charter or going to other places. But imagine thinking about it from early childhood. And a kid enters an early childhood center and says, I'm going to stay in this feeder pattern because of all the incredible resources. So now you have a kid that is prepared for kindergarten. You have a kid that's reading third grade. You have a kid that's on grade level in math, but even more their future into your middle school, into your high school. Now to Dr. Narcisse, to the point of thinking about dual enrollment in AP, those kids are now in position to do those things. And so now you're thinking about your workforce. You're thinking about kids going to Southern, to LSU, to your local community colleges, let alone they're working for you. But they also have the ethos of what you're thinking about for your leadership.
Okay. And so they're not involved in the management of the school. They work with the school management and the district to try to enhance what they already have. Okay, I get it now. I was trying to, because when I first read through the thing, I thought it was a charter school and a different name. But I understand it now. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you calling that out. Because so often we go that way. Is this another school? No, it's not another school. It's an enhancement.
So if I could just add to Dr. Hill, I've worked in a lot of districts that had this model. And the community school model actually that was at Capital Elementary that somehow did not stay for whatever reason. When you look at some of your our most poor schools or Title I, those schools, they get a lot of resources, right? And a lot of funding in a lot of different spaces. What people don't think about is that burden usually falls only on the school leader and those things. And there's a sets of initiatives that we set at this level. So the community schools model, as Dr. Hill talked about, that coordinator would help them to fit those pieces together to do that. The reason it's even more important in struggling schools is because they get so many sets of resources that they're able to help them balance between what happens in the community and those things. The model that actually happened at Capital Elementary, because I had to do a little bit of research when the board adopted that in 2018, I think it was, it actually didn't make a huge impact in that space. I haven't figured out why it did not stay sustainable, but COVID played a huge part in a lot of things. And so the question for us is, as we met with Doc, as we talked a little bit and looking at our pipeline, what we have done is set the table around when you look at our 6 keys in the school district: early childhood education, kindergarten, readiness, 3rd grade, kids reading, all those components of the markers that we set based on our strategic plan under student achievement. We've set that some schools will be able to organize themselves to do that better than others. Schools that are more struggling take a little bit more because they get a bunch of resources. And so the community schools model helps to do that in terms of how they manage and those things. Is that right, Dr.
That's exactly. And again, I think, you're right. When we think about a lot of our Title I schools, there's a lot of resources.
Yeah.
They're just not always managed well. And so here you are as a board being responsible for those places and sometimes asking for more, but then it's hard to tell a story when things aren't organized. And we know that people have a need, but it's even better when we say, here's how we move that needle for struggling places.
So this is a part of this can be a strategy that fits into our current model and setup that provides schools that are struggling or gets a lot of resources to manage even better in partnership with the school leadership.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board colleague Dyson.
Yes, I would like to see this be introduced with the conversation that we're going to have about our facilities master plan. Because, I think we need to know, are these like little small schools that are going to be potentially consolidated or what? And then we've got this program and then these kids haven't been a part of it and these families. And so I think that we would be wise to consider this as part of our facilities planning and, what we're going to be able to put where based on, what we're going to do with our facilities.
So if I could just clarify a little bit, Board Member Dyson, the model helps not necessarily of the size of the school, but much more around the amount of the students and the needs of the school.
Mm-hmm.
And so
But the students, what I'm saying, could change. And so if we're going to do some things with facilities, I think, we're like, we need the facilities piece figured out. And then we need to decide what new programs, because I remember years ago in conference room A, we were talking about the dollars that went into some of the Title I schools and that they had so many programs, but they weren't using them with fidelity. And so there were just like programs everywhere and nobody really, so I just don't want to get ourselves into that situation again. And I think we need to be very strategic with our facility usage, and then we can think through, but this school needs, now this school really needs, or, adding these students, it may not be the same needs anymore. So I'd like to see us move forward with that facilities plan. And I think I've already asked for an update on it for next month.
yes, we plan to bring an update to the board. We're hoping to get that to the board beginning in October. We've been working diligently on that. We'll bring that. Our goal from there would be to bring something actually to the board every month.
Yeah.
To kind of work through that. So
very good, very good.
I'd like to say one last thing as I walk away, just as a thought. As Laurel's is doing work in the communities, I think thinking about how, because I think your point is well taken about how you co-create something, because the idea is not to do a one size fits all. It's to understand collectively like what is going on together. And so Laurel's is really leading that work into the community, thinking about how do we do this better together? Because really the success of a community school is through collaboration. As Vice President said, it's not an equality strategy, it's an equity strategy. It's figuring out what people need based off their community.
Right, and with that potentially changing and incorporating other area or different things, the needs may change.
Yes.
So I don't want to do this haphazardly.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and board colleague, I'm sorry, sir. Board colleague Ware Jackson. I apologize, I had overlooked her earlier.
Yes. Well, I have a bit of a different view on that. I've been wanting to see a consolidated plan, of course. But even more so, I want to see strength in neighborhoods. And when we're looking at this model, I'm thinking more about the people that's in the building rather than what we're going to do with the building and what we're going to do all across the district in different pockets and how we might have to, that whole thing. It's a different animal. What we're looking at here is bringing strength to neighborhoods, bringing the strength into the school based on what that school needs, what that community needs, and to bring the neighborhood children into the schools. And we talk about wraparound services and all of that. This is a big piece of that. And we heard a little bit about some really positive things that were happening at not only Capitol Elementary School, but also the middle school. And the model wasn't even at the middle school, but it was because the families that were at Capitol Elementary School had children that were also at the middle school level. And we're looking at, I think it was like 4 points in that year. It was 5 points that they moved forward. And, that's phenomenal, and the effects that it had on the families, so much so that they could feel it on the next grade level that wasn't even involved. So I think that this is something that we really should seriously look at and not wait until, look, we've been waiting for a facilities plan for years, okay? And we've moved forward with a lot of things. We had things on the table tonight that were way far ahead of our facilities plan. So I would not want to use that as a hindrance to the neighborhoods that really need this. And I'm curious about crime rates, and changes in that when you implement something like this and strengthen neighborhoods. Because I really believe that the schools are really the foundations in a lot of these neighborhoods.
And there's evidence that suggests that crime rate has gone down considerably because people have a buy into the community. They love their space. The one thing, again, I've seen it in Miami, and again, I'm from California, but I had some concerns going into Miami because of crime. But as we began to do the work around community schools into, Liberty City, Little Haiti, is that parents wanted to come out. They wanted to be involved. But even more, where I used to hear people talk about, don't snitch, don't tell. That people had a sense of accountability because they were thinking about other people's children. And so I think, again, I haven't spent much time. I've only been to Baton Rouge twice. But I will be spending more time here within the next year. But I'm sure people care a lot about their community. Neighborhoods matter. Churches matter. Local stores matter. And somewhere along the way, people lose their way. But it doesn't mean that we lose our way in helping them find their way to support. And so I think, community schools become a strategy to really highlight the values that all of you have. And so it's a way of bringing us back to what's important to us. But it's also not about us paying for other people's responsibilities. It's just helping them to be responsible about things that matter.
Right. And looking at the increase in funding that's available. I mean, that's a huge jump, when you're looking at that chart with those numbers and how it's basically.
And it's bipartisan. Politics play out in education. But the reality is this, it's about all kids.
Right. Right. So, and I know that I asked to have that Senate resolution included in the backup because I wanted the board members to see that this has been supported by our Senate for quite some time and encouraging not only here in Baton Rouge, but across the state to embrace this model because of the benefits that we've seen across the nation.
Yes. And you have a strong coalition, you have several folks from the NEA Foundation to Lauros and other groups that are really supporting this body of work. And so again, I think the idea is learning how to work together to advance mission as opposed to, everyone, again, I like the slogan it's about every student, but it's getting everyone to understand it's every student every day. Right. And what can we do together?
Right. And there was a question around this model that was here and, what happened to it? One of my colleagues asked, but I don't have that answer as to what happened to it. It did not fail. I believe it was interrupted. And if we brought that back and picked up where we left off, I am sure that we would see some significant improvements, not only there, but it would continue into the middle school. And Lord knows, Capitol Middle School needs a lot of help. And you know, that's my territory. That's in my backyard. You know, I can feel it. I can hear it. You know, and to see this, especially in other schools, especially at the elementary school level, to start there and build a really strong foundation and watch those kids rise up into middle school, and they would be so much better prepared for when we start breaking off into the different pathways. When we go into high school, they'd have a very, very strong foundation. So that's the way that I view this, as a really good foundation. And we don't know exactly what happened. I think somehow the coordinator got moved or something, and it kind of fell apart. I'm not sure if that's even the right narrative around that. But I just know that it was moving forward very well, had lots of partners. The community was really on fire about it, and somehow it just got interrupted. There was no failure there, for certain.
What I hear is a new day. A new day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Seeing no other requests to speak from the board, I move forward to item E1. Next meeting dates announcements. All right, so we have our regular meeting to be held on September 15th at 5:00 p.m. here at the Central Office Boardroom. Then we have a community forum to be held on September 22nd from 5 to 6:30 at the Blue Bonnet Library. Superintendent, that particular community forum is for what subject matter?
That is the Kenilworth community meeting. Is that what?
Oh, yes. Okay, Kenilworth.
That will be actually I'll be where the Kenilworth meeting will be deciding on the focused choice school there, and also just what is the community want in that space.
All right, and then committee of the whole to be held on October 6th, 2002, 5:00 p.m. here at the Central Office Boardroom. And motion to adjourn.
Wait.
All right.
Oh, let me ask about something that I'd asked about earlier around the DuProc. Speaking of community events, there was something on the calendar, but I know there's a request from members of that community to kind of switch that up, and even if we need to back it out so we can do the research a little longer.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure we're engaging the principal. And
Yeah.
I know you're getting calls from family members, but I don't want to leave out the principal, as she works with the community directly, and so we'll come back with some dates on that.
Yeah, so we can do a little more research and get everybody to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you, I
All right.
appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you.